things new that we're working with. You know, the over-the-row is typically our standard machine throughout the year. We just did a batch of 10 this last year. You know, the ORXLs are preferred machines. Sometimes those road trips, the ORs will still pull on a 36-inch deck trailer, where the XL has to be on a low boy. So if you guys bounce in fields, keep that in mind. The over-the-rows are much easier to tear down and move field to field. The XL, however, has 2 less drop points. So it's got 4 fans. The over-the-row only has the lower crossbelt fan and then the main cleaner fan. And on the XL, it's got 2 fans in the back and then 2 fans up on top. So the fruit's delivered directly onto the inspection belt, and then it's cleaned, and then it's sorted, and the other side of the fruit's delivered right into there, and it just kind of puzzles right together, and it goes through the fans much more evenly than the over-the-row. The over-the-row never concentrates it, and so the fan works really hard just to distribute the fruit, and don't do as well a cleaning job. So the XLs, you know, they got more fruit dispersed over a bigger area, and it just cleans so much better. And then the fans have real short turns on the ducts, and so it don't have to move that fruit far, and so there's nowhere for fruit to build up inside the ducts, and so it keeps it moving pretty good. So the XL, we're seeing, you know, if you're after that fresher fruit, you run those fans harder, you can actually lift up that lighter fruit because it's underweight. You know, blueberry puts on about 30% of its weight in its last week. So if that fruit's overripe or underripe, it's also underweight. So if we're really trying to sort for the fresh, slow it down, run the fans real hard. The side row harvester got a remodel this year in what we're calling SRX, which is adopted the suspension off of the over-the-row and the ORX machine to lift everything together. So there's no more variable height fill station. You got basically a fixed height, and then it's also nice to unload so you can match up to any truck height to just step across. So we did a prototype of that in 2000, 2001. At that time, everybody thought it was too expensive. Now all the expenses have gone up to the point where adding, you know, $20,000 worth of extra to make it lift like that is more bearable. You know, the big machine's about 233. This one's about 231, 232 actually, and then this one's about 170 range. So it's much more affordable for this machine now. So we're seeing these going into younger blueberries this year for the first time. So, you know, when you look at what you get for $50,000 less, if it's a smaller blueberry, that's definitely an option. We have 3 shaker head options that go in that. The true orbit head, which is the elliptical, and then we got the horizontal, and we got the vertical. Verticals typically only go to Linden area. The other thing we're doing is the tree fruit machine. Sour cherries, olives, cider apples, citrus, who knows what all it's capable of. But right now they're all in cherries. We did take it down to California and we did olives and it worked out great. So something new. The other thing we're doing is the orchard processor for the trellised apple vineyards. So you're still hand picking. You got guys on the ground here, guys on this platform, and guys on this platform picking the A-frame trellises. So everybody's picking an area of about 3 feet, and then it picks up boxes in the front, fills them in the back, and drops them out the back. And then there's a sorting area up here where 2 people sort all the apples, and so that reduces the need to take that box to the processing plants to go directly to cold storage. And that saves them roughly $60 to $120 a box, depending on where you travel to the processing and back to the cold storages. candy cleaners. You guys probably seen these like Lama Fruit and Firestone, some of those processors. Something else, you know. So everybody's wanting to do some fresh. These are great tools to have in your packing area. And you put a, you know, 16 or 20 foot inspections out in front of it and pick up a clamsheller and some labels, and all of a sudden you can go play your fresh game. So we preach fresh all the time, so if you can slow the machine down and run some fresh, and then, you know, when you get busy, you know, and you have no choice and process the balance of it, and you make that margin that makes it profitable for the year. Another thing that we're working on is we've got one of these out in the field, and we're working on a second one now, is a power trimmer for shaping the bigger berries. When they get out of hand, they start shaping each other, and you know, we want to get them back in shape. So we have flails that we can pitch in and then move in and out, and the top can move up and down. So these are, I think, are going to become more popular as the pruning labor goes up. There'll still be some additional hand pruning needed to be doing, but the nice thing about this thing is its average debris is under 2 inches. I mean, it just literally grinds it, and it tends to throw it off of the plant. The other thing we're doing is the front mount sprayers. These are pretty popular. Putting your herbicides in a shield, so you can just definitely just keep it right where you want it.
Hey, Frank?
Yeah.
Just a word. You got a bunch of folks over here too, so if you could.
Okay. And so then, you know, fruit quality every time. So, you know, the biggest thing about fruit quality is it don't start with the machines. It don't start with the hand pickers. It starts in the field. So all of your fruit, you know, you gotta work closely with your field management team to get that fruit quality there. There's some tricks to machine harvesting. You know, everybody loves nitrogen. We're finding more and more that nitrogen applied too close to harvest really makes that fruit hang on tight. So, you know, cutting back the nitrogen, maybe even stressing the plant a little bit right before it's harvest time, might make that fruit release a little bit better, is what some of our growers are telling us. So as we go through it, you know, the getting it chilled, you know, a lot of guys have the reefers right in the field. You know, the smaller trucks coming from the harvester to the processing plant, or having reefers in the field. Because every hour that you can get that fruit over 80 degrees is 1 day of shelf life. So if you put it out there for 10 hours, it's 10 days. I mean, it goes away fast. So picking at cooler temperatures and getting it chilled as quickly as possible is one of the true keys to success with the fruit quality. So then the processor, you know, what machines, processes, you know, it's, you know, their equipment in the processing plant. I'm being pretty critical about processors to reduce their drops. Everybody's up against us for our drops. We got our drops in, you know, off the bush is the worst one, but then once we get into the catchers and the cups, all of our drops are, you know, 6 inches or less. You know, you go to a processing plant, you see the guys unloading the fruit, you know, and I've seen them, you know, a guy gets tired, he just starts slamming the crates into the offloading hoppers. And then overfilling the offloading hoppers, you just see the stuff like churning like gravel in there. You're just like, you know, we work so hard to get it there, and then the processors, you know, got to watch their crews too. You know, there's typically about 9 to 13 drops in every processing plant. And, you know, as much as we love color sorters, soft sorters, all those things, they're all drops. So, you know, when you guys, you know, the guys that are processing, if you can minimize those drops, you're going to do the whole industry a favor. So we want to keep a push on your processors. If you see something stupid going on at the processing plant, it's your dollars that's going to hell. So, and then the customer, you know, obviously, you know, getting quality fruit to them is what it's all about. So in short, good berries in, good berries out. Bad berries in, we can't make good berries with it. So, you know, the important thing to start out with the grower and all the right things. And hopefully this spring will warm up and quit that fruit's mishandled, whether you're driving too fast in the field or letting it on the machine too long or you're sitting in the truck. You know, we had instances 2 years ago where a reefer ran out of diesel and somebody didn't catch it, and they put a fog line about 3 feet from the top of the trailer is where it condensed, and that fruit literally molded in that fog line overnight. It was just crazy. Backwards here, what? You know, the chilling, getting it down. You know, you see the you know the condensation on the fruit. That's another thing. In the process of chilling the fruit, you know, there's certain methods where you can reduce the condensation. If you get the condensation on your fruit, you're just asking for trouble. So, you know, in that process, watch that, because if you change that temperature too fast, it will condensate on you. You know, the processor, different ones. You know, some guys are spraying fruit. You know, some guys are roll grading fruit, all that sort of stuff. You know, it's all another process. So the number of processes we can reduce on the fruit is going to be that better quality fruit. So, you know, it's nice to have all these tools, but we got to watch it that we don't. There you go. So, you know, in the tools, we tried to increase our tool of manufacturing. So we were fortunate to purchase the Karsten Homes facility right across the street from our plant, and we've been able to increase our manufacturing capabilities in there, so we don't have to panic and pull down and rearrange the shop just to be able to assemble. So you'll see constant assembly in there where you got more time, more detail, and hopefully a better product that's delivered on time. Something else that's new for Littau Harvester, we're 2 years into this, as a Cub Cadet dealer. We're playing with the Kohler KDI Tier 4 diesel engines. We signed up with that. That's from PS out of Salem. PS is also the distribution for all small engine stuff in the Northwest, including all the Cub Cadet products, you know, and there's a wide variety of products. So with that, we've got all kinds of zero turns and side-by-sides and stuff like that. So it's all products that we saw in the field, in your fields. You guys all have the weed eaters, the lawnmowers, power saws, and berry pickers, and the side-by-sides running around out there. So we're another source for that for you at this time. Once again, not too many apples in this area, but the apples, you know, this was in straight hedges here, set up. These guys are tethered onto here, so there's no rails at that side. The boxes coming and getting filled and going out the back. And, you know, some really nice quality fruit. You see in here, these apples, I swear they're nicer than anything we see in our stores. It's all getting exported because it is a high value fruit. You know, once again, you can save about $150 a box on that. The tree fruit harvester. This is doing cherries right here, sour cherries. We've only done a little bit of experiment with fresh cherries. They were about a week overripe when we harvested them, but there was about 85% came with stems on, that you like, and fresh cherries, and the sour cherries could virtually have no stems. This thing can pull about 300,000 pounds of fruit at night, too. Lights and safety. Last year was a terrible year for safety. There was multiple car crashes. There was one right here in Woodburn. There was another one up in Linden. There was, what was the third one? There was 3 of them, but 3 of them that were really bad. 2 of them had fatalities on them. One of the fatalities was the crew that was on the side row harvester. The guy that's sitting on the inspection seat on the back landed right up against the truck. So, you know, and the bad thing was is they only had to go a few hundred yards out of one field into a field. So, you know, all the lights were on, and the truck comes along, leaves 99, grabbing gears, and just drives right at the back of the thing. No reason for it whatsoever. But if you guys want to put strobes on your stuff, I recommend a pilot car. You know, the bad thing about that machine getting in middle of season, there's not extra machines to go around. So you're not only going to lose your crew, you're probably going to lose your crop. So, you know, be safe out there. Follow all your legal rules, guidelines, get those strobes on there. There's some magnetic strobes, there's, you know, bolt-on strobes. We can do everything. We've added extra lights to the machines this year, trying to prevent this stuff. But it's, you know, you guys are the key to this thing, to keeping it safe out there. XL harvester. Catchers and catcher designs, we got the 3.5 inch, which is high density stuff. We're actually favoring the 4.5 inch 3/8 plates. Those plates are now heavy duty enough. I can step up on them and they deflect less than an inch. So what you're going to see is in the field, on a sprawled out blueberry bush, the plates come in and they just keep pushing down until they're virtually flat and curled. And then they open up and the fruit drops. So with the 3/8 plate design, we've been able to put the lip back on it so they don't bend down, and whenever they get pushed open, they take the fruit with them. So we're seeing way better, you know, capture of the fruit, less drops. Because the plates are stiffer, they don't move up and come down and land on the fruit and bruise and mark the fruit as much. So that's been a good tip. You know, the XL has a 15 by 15, so that's 210 square feet of space. The driver centralized right over it. I know we get a little bit of criticism for having the see-through floor with expanded screen floors, but you know, if you keep your guys' shoes clean and such, and that there's nothing better than for fruit quality than if you spill a berry, it literally goes right back and comes back to you. If we deck these over like certain people are asking for, you're going to have a slippery surface with fruit quality and flies will stick to it. Just, you know, I've seen it before. So we got to, you know, I'm kind of voting to keep the screen floor open. We got some guys doing a 3-machine experiment this year with a solid deck. It's, I don't know, food safety wise, it's probably great. I'm not a fan of it. The elevator on these, of course, everybody's probably familiar with this, lowers down here, and so you can offload what's getting max truck height. We put the fold down rear gates on almost everything this year, so that you can unlatch it and it literally fold straight down, and you can back up and offload everything out the back. So the heads, you know, on these machines, they got longer C-frames. There's the heads farther back into the machine so we don't get a fruit loss out the front, and then those can swing out wide. So, you know, this new catcher system has a 33-inch opening in here, and then a 66 thumb opening, and that 66 is all the way through. So with a 66-inch opening, we're still, you know, bending bushes, because some of these bushes are literally 120 inches wide in some of these fields. And those fields that are that big, you're going to notice that they grow pointing south. And so I've got customers now with north to south rows where they only pick them north to south. They'll drive around. And most of those guys are getting a full load by the time they get to the end of the road anyway, so they're offloading and driving around. So keep that in mind. If you're pushing your bushes back this way, then they really flip when they come out of the machine, and then there's fruit loss there too. So not all the fruit loss is lost in the catcher system. A lot of it is the products entering the field and exiting the field. We did some experiments like with Mark Unger with some polycarbonate, you know, funnels coming into the machine. Had some other people asking for some other capture methods in the front. But so that's some things we're working on right now, especially with the SRX. So the front mount sprayers, you know, they have a scissors type mechanism, so with the single control lever, you can move both of them in or out. With the other lever, you can raise and lower the whole unit. It makes it really nice. There's a nice little stand that they sit on, and you just stick it on upside down. So wherever you are, when you go to take that off, just lift it up, take a stand over, put it on, and lower it down, disconnect it. So it always has a stand, so they can tip it over, sitting in the dirt when you're not using it. And we did some drop tests. And so when we did the drop tests, there was 3 machines present up there. One of them wasn't working, so it's pretty hard to get information off of it. Our blue friends up there, blue line, you know, they had 50% less drop than us. And you know, between Knoxville's less drop and ours less drop, it should be making money just by not dropping anything. So we did find out one thing: if the machine isn't working, it isn't dropping anything. So maybe that's how you get 50% less drop. So as we did this, we were picking some really big bushes. We dropped 11 pounds and 25 foot. At the same time, though, we pulled 96 full lugs at 35 to 40 pounds. So we had a 2.86% loss. So, you know, you hear some terrible things out there, but if you actually go out and clean it, tarp it, and do your own studies and your own fruit, you'll find out what works best for you. And a lot of times you're going to find out that, you know, all this fruit loss isn't really as bad as you think it is. And you're going to see another, if you're running your fans correctly, you're going to see another loss, and that's going to occur what blows out of your fans. You know, small greens, reds, those are, you know, you're going to see those out there too. But if it's trading a value for the grade that you're getting paid, you know, yeah, we still see people bringing leaves and evergreen berry to the processing plant. And you just got to pay somebody else to clean it. So truly, you're doing the world a favor if you run the machine correctly and bring quality fruit to your processing plants. It's going to reduce the backload on them, especially in blackberries. I mean, that spike on blackberries every year seems to just absolutely flood every single piece of processing equipment in the valley. And that's pretty much what I got. And then, I'm not sure how do I get that light. Come on. We were talking, we did some experimentations with Airstar lighting last year. You know, it's kind of brief in the heat of the moment during the summer. But we took it out to Oregon Blueberry. We did some experiments on 2 machines out there. We took it into blackberries in 2 different fields. And so these lights are just amazing. And so what you know, the nice thing about them is you can look right at it and look away and still see. The other thing that's amazing is you're 150 feet away, you can have your back to the light and you can look. I mean, it's true at daylight as can be. So we had 600 watt, 300 watt experiments. We can run a 300 watt on the machine. We plugged it into the canopy mast, the alligator clip to the battery. When we first started off, we had 110 inverters and stuff. We had developed some 12-volt systems, direct 12-volt systems. And we were able to run these all night without any excessive drain on the battery, on the open roads with Cummins engine. I don't think a Kubota would ever handle it. But on your work areas, offloading areas, you may want to consider this or other types of lights because the only bad thing about the rack of halogens is you look at that and you turn around and you're blind. So the nice thing about this is an indirect light system that once again is going to keep you lit, keep you safe. So some of this stuff is things to think about. And in the mix of safety, we're all out there working in the dark. I don't care if it's blueberries, blackberries. happen in the dark. So as we get going in this, you know, we're the dealer for it. They're available online. They're expensive as all get up. You know, I don't know what we can do about that, but the quality lights, that makes it very safe. You know, we've seen people out there that were picking blackberries. We brought the light out, and they're like, "Oh wow, we got too much red." Well, you had to get the light over and, you know, put your flashlight on it to see that. Hey, that's what it looks like when you got a flashlight on, but it's a whole different quality of light. But anyway, so we've done some experiments there with that. And, you know, Tom Kushnick, Bob Gabriel, Oregon Blueberry, after Johnny, those guys, you know, some guys to talk to. Gang Farms, we did it out there for a few nights, so, you know, it's definitely new stuff, but it takes a look at. The other thing is all the LED lights and such on the machines. You know, the other thing is the old lenses are glass, and you either need to get a protected cover on them or just upgrade to LED lights. You can get them from us, you can get them from hardware stores, but the light quality is certainly important for all the different aspects of the harvester. So, any questions?
Frank, are you still a proponent of these really heavy heads for picking blackberries?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. And this last year we seen them coming back with a 1-inch weight out of them. Okay, so we were kind of preaching last year going into it, you know, full weights, you know, start to finish. So, but now we're like starting with 2 inches of weight out for the first pick, and then you may not need all the weight in it, but there was probably out of 150 machines, I'm going to say there was probably about 30 of them that come back with a 1-inch weight out of them at the end of the season. So, once again, we've just got to play with it and see what that optimum thing is. The one nice thing about this shaker, here's my analogy on it, is let's say I'm in the car and you're in the truck. We're both going to leave this, go one block. We're both going to leave at the same time. We're both going to stop at the same time. The car, you can take off quick, go 30 miles an hour, hit the brakes. The truck, you're going to be banging gears to the middle of the block and then start shifting down. And so it puts the speed in the middle instead of at the end. So two things, we're not seeing the rod breakage was way down this year. We've seen machines, many machines come back without a single rod cracked or broken. So we're seeing less rod damage. And then the other thing is we think that what we're doing is we're getting a more selective pick. And in blackberries, for example, Tom Kushnick, good example, you might chat with him, but he saw way less dried fruit on the bush, almost none, which helped his mold issues greatly, and he had great tonnage. Forest Hills Farms, they went literally from 5 machines to 4 machines. And been 4 machines now for this will be the 3rd year that they had 4 machines instead of 5. They were 5 for like 10 years, same amount of acreage. He also advertised that he had record tonnage the last couple of years. And basically it's not knocking off the green and the reds, it's having them there when you come back. And the other thing it did for some of the guys was it's a more uniform pick, and it might buy you literally acreage that you can pick with that machine because you might get an extra day in your turns. So that's been our experience with that head. So far it's all been positive.
Right?
Yeah.
I guess we didn't need Don anyway. Just a question on the blueberry, US HBC blueberry, the big thing on mechanization. And it looks like there's a lot of companies starting to enter into this. Are you seeing more competition out there for other lines coming in?
Not so much, Here in the Northwest, I mean, the blue line machines, there are limited numbers out there that still trying to get their foothold in it.
And those are not great caneberry machines, right?
I haven't seen one in a caneberry, but they're out there. The fulcrum, the V-pick machine, obviously you ain't gonna bend that through a caneberry, right? You ain't gonna put a spade in the middle of a posted row. see that happen. And then that's, you know, not talking shit about it, but that is the old school short stroke technology, because you had road divided, you had short rods, and you were picking it while it was in a 1 foot area. So you know, it's that short, high frequency stroke. And I think, you know, even if you stand that up, you can go back. It'd be like putting our smallest old tin can belt-driven heads in from what was that, 1989? And you got a set of those laying around, put them back in if you like that. Okay, but you know, it's short, high frequency, which does a lot of contact to future fruit. So I think the thing we can do is slow it down the best we can. So that, you know, we had a lot of people that were saying that great results with sway machines, you know, our old slapper machines. And
Well, there's a new one out of Michigan now too, they're putting out new sway machines.
absolutely. And we haven't seen any of that stuff in caneberries. Okay, they're great reach for the thing. At the show there in Salt Lake City there a couple weeks ago, you know, there was another air machine from Europe and such. You know, the only thing I can say about air is if that feels good, it only goes to the first point of impact and it disperses. So you can't get any penetration with air. I mean, we've all proved it. We all, to this day, I got guys experimenting with air in different ways. You know, you try to boil fruit, you got, you know, something dropping that fast. How do you get enough air to move that 4 or 5 inches? Oh yeah, and you got this going on because you're in a plant. So I'm not a fan of the air. It's a high horsepower, high violent, and the projectiles that it captures, the debris can embed in the plants. We did a bunch of experiment with AgriCare with padding, you know, silicone paddings in the, you know, draped in the side of the machine. You know, there's not very many food grade products out there. Pure silicone sheets are one of them. Unfortunately, they're very, very frail. So it seemed like we would poke a hole in it and its own weight would just tear it off. You know, we did port inserts in catcher pads, you know, with outlets. We found that 30 durometer was the magic, you know, to get the berry to not feel it. At 30 durometer, I think you're really close to flypaper. Everything stuck to it, you know, so 3 days into it, you just had this nasty looking piece, right? So 40 durometer was good, but we didn't really see the advantage. It doubled the cost of the catchers, probably 3 times, literally. You know, we had it machined out, we had to drill holes through them with a little flare on the back to keep it from peeling out because, you know, polycarbonate and silicone don't have the best adhesion even when you pour it. So we, you know, did a really fast router with rough, and that worked even better. But, you know, the only part we could do was the exposed portion. And then the other thing I think about it is it's like brake pads, right? So the catcher's open, they get on that, so she gets a little bit of dirt to it, the stick, and it didn't close. The other part of it we did was brushes, you know, the last 4 inches either side was bristle brushes. Well, even with a 50 thousandths metal clamp on the bristles, right here is a pocket that a berry will sit in at the end of the bristles. And, you know, and then there it is sitting there, and then things are open and moving, you can lose as much as you can. So, you know, all those experiments that we did, that's 2 years ago now, and now called up and said, hey, let's do the other 20 machines, right? So that tells the secret right there.
But it does sound like Oxbow is moving ahead with what they're cooperating with WSU and stuff. It sounds like they've got some there that padding that seems to work for them. I'm not sure. Have you seen it or?
I have, and I'll tell you what they did. They did a sandwich with trampoline mesh material in the middle of it. And so, you know, I'll talk some shit here because if you put a sandwich in there, and what you're doing is you're making a box full of berries, right? Because it's down 3/16. You got 3/16 lip, just like the bristle brush. Now you got a lip, and if the fruit don't roll off of that lip, and the next catcher comes over, you have the same problem we had a few years ago when we come up with that double catcher in '07. I was a fan of that. Brian was a fan of it until, you know, it kicked my ass later because every short plate, I had long plates and short plates, 2.5 plates. Every time those 2 plates that overhung, it was just the right height to roll up on a berry and put a mark on it. And then the QC guys ain't as alive for it. You know, so I mean, that was one of my most expensive, greatest things. I stayed up for weeks and days working with Dan to get that thing drawn. We got it out in the field, and a year later it was done. You know, I got a patented junk pile out behind the shop. You know, and that, they got my name on. There it is, right? So you know, you know.
Do you see anything coming out of Littau the next year or two that's going to address that whole? Well, this is a more blueberry problem.
I do. We're playing with some stuff right now, but it's very limited. You know, the biggest thing that we're doing right now is the 4.5 inch, 3/8 plate catcher upgrade. And shake your head. And you know, and that system right now is doing a lot of retrofits into that. That seems to be the best dollar that I can put in front of anybody and tell them that, you know, if you do this, you'll see some money at the end. The other stuff, it's experimental, and anybody wants to try it, see me, we'll try it. But you know, it's expensive and it's high maintenance, and I don't know if the benefit's there. You know, the silicone aprons and such, you know, that's got some merit. You know, the bad thing about it is that it's so frail. You know, those things are $1,000 a sheet for a 3x8 sheet. You know, I mean, you know, if you get them in super high volumes, then nobody can supply it. So if you want to try it, better order it now. And you're going to be expensive in there, and you're going to have some maintenance to do. Thank you. You bet.
Our next speaker is Rob Rosetta, OSU Extension Agent. Rob has been working on this project forever, but it's really getting some exciting stuff. And she actually did something that none of us thought she could do. It sounds like they got indefinite funding of USDA to develop this type of sprayer technology. Is that right?
Can you hear me in the cheap seat? Oh, okay. Oh, now? Now, that better. All right. Good morning. I want to thank Tom for inviting me back. I know for some of you, you've heard a bit about this since I was here a couple of years ago, but we have advanced a little bit, and so I'm hoping I can catch you up on this. You mentioned that it was a smart sprayer. One thing we thought of with this is a lot like a cell phone, that many of you now have smartphones instead of the old flips. We did run across somebody who did manage to patent that, so now it's intelligent spray systems technology that we're working with. We can't use smart sprayer anymore because of the trademark. But it is that same sort of thinking, is letting technology integrate into our devices or our systems and do the work for us because they can be smarter and quicker and more efficient than we can in many cases. So today I'd like to just give you a bit of an overview, particularly for those of you who haven't heard about this work, about what we've been doing, and then to talk a little bit about our current research and then some of our plans as we go forward with this research. We have learned that using sensors so we don't spray the empty spaces, we reduce the volume of pesticides applied by 47 to 70%. That's huge. When I was at UC Davis and studying for my master's degree, one of the departments I had as in the interdisciplinary program was ag engineering. And I remember sitting in my ag engineering class, ag application technology class, and hearing efficiency of ag sprays is 1%. And I heard that and I said, well, that sucks. But I'm not an engineer. I can't do anything about that. I'm more of a biologist. So I'll do my best to try to bring efficiency in through my knowledge of biology. But what happened was that we managed to hook up with some very good engineers to work with this new technology. I say new, actually, because it has been around for a long time. That same ag engineering class was taught by Ken Giles at UC Davis, and he was really one of the major folks behind using sensors on ag sprayers. And at that time, he was working with Caltrans, the Transportation Department of California, to design roadside sprayers that detected the weeds as they went down the road and only sprayed where the weeds were. So it's been around for a long time, but just like your cell phone, some of you are old enough to remember what those first mobile phones looked like. Mine came in an attache case. It weighed, I don't know, 15 pounds, 15 pounds. It was mobile, you know, we were no longer tethered. But yeah, nowadays, you know, there are phones like this big nowadays that do more than I even want to try to learn. So things are moving pretty quickly. We've learned about those tremendous reductions in the volume with our first Specialty Crop Research Initiative grant that funded 5 years of research in nurseries. This is a multi-state, multi-agency project that is led by Dr. Hepping Zhu at the Application Technology Research Unit of USDA ARS based in Worcester, Ohio. In addition to the USDA scientists, we have researchers at, for this project, 3 different universities. Ohio State was involved. We also had University of Tennessee, and I was the lead and only principal investigator for Oregon during that initial research. In those 5 years, we did quite a number of trials in these various states. We were lucky here in Oregon that we actually had the opportunity to work with multiple prototypes. This was actually our first prototype. Let's see. I'm not sure I know where there we go. So you can see this is actually a modified GK over the tree row sprayer. It's got a 30-foot long boom here, and you see the 6 spray bays there. Pointing over here too for you guys. This used ultrasonic sensors, this particular design. And you can see that the retrofit on the right side of the sprayer here, each one of those spray bays had multiple ultrasonic sensors. As the sprayer goes down the row, the sensors detect the plants, the size, width, and height of the plants, send that information to a microprocessor unit, and that basically uses algorithms to send information to solenoids to adjust the flow of the spray to match the characteristics of the plants in the row. So if there's a plant there, spray. If there's nothing there, turn it off. Pretty simple in some ways as it went down the rows. That was our initial prototype. We saw about 40 to 50% reduction in pesticides working with that one. But then we shifted over to using a newer, what we thought was much better prototype. And in this case, there are lasers. There's one laser sensor. We don't have multiple sensors on here. In the time that we did this research, in that first 5 years, that laser went from $10,000 down to $5,000. So it's the most costly part of this particular system that we have on the sprayer. There are multiple components on this system. I'll kind of walk you through it. So up on the upper left, there's that sensor I talked about. It's very small relatively, and in general, in this prototype, it's in front of the spray tank. We also have in the cab an embedded computer with a touch screen. That touch screen allows the operator actually to customize some of the operation of the sensor. For instance, in a nursery, you might have several rows, but you have different plants there, and you don't want to spray all of them. Maybe you just want to spray one row over. You can tell the sprayer, I only want to sense this row. And you can also see all of the nozzles operating on the sprayer, whether they're firing or not. We have, on this particular design, you see sort of a tower configuration with the 4 or 5-finger nozzle systems on either side. And I want to mention, each one of those nozzles are independently operated by this system. It's a multi-channel system on this sprayer. Here's the control box on the lower left side of the screen there for you, and that's all solid state. It's color-coded for ease of maintenance, so everything is color-coded throughout the system so that you can see what's happening basically. If there's a line that's clogged or that sort of thing, you can kind of change things through the system. There's a Doppler speed sensor on the bottom so that the information about the speed of the sprayer, the tractor, is sent in as part of the algorithm. So if you're going 3 miles an hour, or maybe you start going down a hill, these things go up to 4 or 5 miles an hour, this thing can adjust for those sort of things in real time. On the lower right, you start seeing some of the pattern, that information that is coming through with the laser sensor. This one, I mentioned the ultrasonic can detect the size, the width, the height of the plants. This one, the resolution of the information with the laser versus the ultrasonic is that we can also assess the density of the plant there. So, and again, adjust that flow at a more sensitive amount. And at the top there, the top right, you see that pulse width modulation flow control valves, or TWM. I didn't know much about that. From what I've studied with it, it looks like, and I'm not an engineer, I'm definitely a biologist, but it adjusts the proportion of the frequency of time that a nozzle basically is either spraying, in this case, either spraying or a half flow or off. So that proportion changes over time. So this is our proof of concept sprayers that we have out there in a number of different situations. A little bit more information. The laser on here is extremely sensitive. It can detect about a 1/4 inch wide, maybe even slightly less, type of object. So we tested this out, or demonstrated it at the North Willamette in the raspberry breeding plots. It must have been about 5 years ago now. And there was a break, one of the selections had been taken out, and we could see it going down there. We saw the 2 wires and the post, and you could see it, fire at the post. But the operator, being able to see on the screen each one of the nozzles going, he said, no, it's also spraying the wire as it went down. We couldn't detect that with our eyes, but it is that sensitive out there that it will spray with that. It will detect 30 meters or 90 feet on either side of the sprayer in a 270-degree radius. So if you have pretty tall plants, that sort of thing, this thing's going to be very sensitive to that. I think one of the weaknesses that we've detected with this particular design of this prototype is we struggle in the nursery system to get it to effectively hit some of the very low plants, the liner systems that we have. So we're trying to work with that system, but I think we'll get a lot more information on it. But in general, we've been able to get very good sprays with most types of the plants. One of the things that happens with the laser is that it comes in and it basically sort of takes, for each one of those nozzles, it's sighting on a part of the canopy all the way up. So that information is taken as this thing goes down the road. But really, what I think shows you what goes on here is best seen in a video. So I want to get this thing going. Hopefully it'll work for me here. It's enough information there that might have kind of slept on it a little bit. The wrong thing. Uh-oh. I crashed it, really good. That seems to be the lucky 13 that's holding with today. Hopefully you'll be able to bring it up. Well, Holly does it. I'll just mention kind of the status. When we worked with that first prototype that you've seen, they've had 5 of those prototypes in 3 of the states. So we have one here in Oregon at Hens Nelson and Son Nursery. We also had one in Tennessee, and then they had 3 others in Ohio. Those were the ones that we first worked with in a variety of different nursery types. We had the shade tree nurseries that we've done most of our work here in Oregon, but they've also worked with pot and pot. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but pot and pot is generally the containers are sunk into the ground. There's actually 2 containers. One is embedded in the ground and another is put in it, and they can kind of move plants up and out pretty well. I've received quite a number of folks actually here in Woodburn. There's quite a bit of pot to pot. So they've been in different situations, but great, thank you for getting that up. So this is the video. Hopefully that will loop around for us. This is a sprayer in action up in Ohio. These are plots in Worcester, Ohio that were designed to have different plant architectures. Some short, some tall, standard type designs for trees, and a lot of gaps. And so what I want you to notice in here is as it goes down the row, it will stop firing in those gaps. Or some of the nozzles will turn off when there's tall plants like this, or with these shrubs, those upper nozzles are shut off. And when this thing hits the end of the row, it will turn off. I've got one more video. Maybe I'll let you do this. I can personally try to crash it. So that's the prototype in action, and then this is a close-up in slow motion that shows you the pulsing of the sprayer as it goes down, that pulse width modulation that I spoke about. So that's another way that we're getting some of the savings and the reductions in the volume that we apply out here. Everybody see that? Oops. So what we have found, comparing the prototype with the intelligent spray systems to a conventional air blast type of sprayer, is, and generally what we try to do as well as compare the intelligent spray system prototype with and without the system turned on. So if you turn off the system, it sprays just like a normal sprayer. It's just all nozzles are firing and just one continuous plume like a normal sprayer. So we compared those out in the field, and what we found is that we reduced spray loss on the ground by 68 to 93%. Now I have growers who come out and seen this thing demonstrated and put their sprayers right up against it and spray down there. We put moisture-sensitive cards out there, and one of the things they said, we've got the drift check nozzles on there so we don't have drift. But then they saw they were still spraying out the same amount of stuff. It wasn't drifting up there, but it was going on the ground. All the moisture-sensitive cards were saturated down below. So it keeps the aerial drift down, but if you're still pushing it out, it's got to go somewhere. So that's what we found with the ground non-target losses. When we looked at spray loss beyond the trees, we saw that we reduced spray loss beyond the tree canopies from 40 to 87%. The greatest reductions is early in the season when there's not as much canopy and there's more empty space. If we're not spraying that empty space, we can save a lot of volume of the pesticides. Now, one of the things we did when we worked with this was go the extra mile. The whole reason you spray is whether you control a pest, right? So a big part of this work was research looked at efficacy. So in the nurseries, we looked at diseases and insects as much as we could. We looked at powdery mildew on the maples. We looked at aphids on things like oaks. We looked at rust on ornamental pears. We looked at a little midge on honey locust trees that, It can make fold dolls on all of the little leaflets on those trees. We also looked at a sawfly that generally these come to the bottom of the canopy and they skeletonize the leaves. And what we found in all of those cases, in all of those, I did 9 trials up here and it's consistent with all the other trials, we saw no difference in efficacy. With these large reductions in the volume of pesticides, there was statistically no difference in the efficacy. And what we actually saw in general sometimes was an enhanced coverage in more uniform droplets on the leaves. We also looked at the cost. Everybody cares about that. In those first 5 years, we looked just at pesticide costs. And as you can see here, in these types of graphs that we have here, with the laser-guided sprayer, our intelligent spray systems, we are coming in quite a bit below the cost for just the chemicals. Now, I know chemical costs may or may not be a big part of your budget, but it's certainly an expense. But, you know, there was this time when there was this almost sudden transitional shift when I went to grower meetings, and then they stopped talking about the size of the bonfires out there in the nurseries and started talking about the limitations of labor. So one of the other things we knew we needed to start tracking as we went with this research was looking at labor as well and some of the other costs. And so that's one of the next things that we plan on doing. So I will mention, and I don't have it up here, I have learned in Tennessee in a nursery where they have looked at that, they have shown an approximate reduction of 50% in the time for application. So I know in nurseries, the spray position is definitely a limited position labor-wise, very hard to get somebody who can pass those tests and reliably be there in all the places you need. If you can cut that time down that person needs to spray a certain area, it's huge. And what we're finding is one tank goes 3 to 5 times as far. So you don't have to refill that from a safety point of view. The concentrate, the exposure and mixing is the most dangerous time when you're working with chemistry. So to reduce the number of times you do that is huge. For some areas, some crops, just even dealing with the water for in places like California with large acreages they have down there, they have to have some kind of a water truck that comes behind the sprayer to work with the refills on some of those really large acreages. So these are some of the things that we're thinking about when we look at this. But so we learned in those first 5 years that we have sometimes more uniform and consistent coverage. We have 40 to 80% reduction in the spray loss on the ground, 87% reduction in airborne spray drift, and 68 to 93% reduction, that's the spray loss on the ground. 40 to 80% on tree loss. That goes right between the trees. We also saved $140 to $281 per acre just on the chemical costs. No fuel, no time, none of that. So again, like I said, we wanted to look at that further. So when folks started seeing these numbers that we came up with in the nursery systems, we were asked, can you look at this in other cropping systems? We'd like to see those same results in what our system looks like. And so that's really where we went next. We expanded. We added more logos. We've got 3 more universities involved. We've got Clemson now involved. We've got University of California Cooperative Extension. Now we have Texas A&M all involved. We've now expanded. We're still doing nursery research trials, but we've expanded into nut crops, tree fruit. There is some small fruit work being done in Ohio, and I think Clemson is doing some of that as well. And viticulture as well. So we've got that proof of concept prototype down in Napa. It's a narrow, skinny little thing that we had to customize for their 4-foot spacing and that really high value land down there. But we're going to have data out of there. We are now expanding here in Oregon to include hazelnuts hopefully down the road. And we have a vineyard here. One so far, we hope to have another coming online that will be working with the intelligent spray systems as well as some of our nurseries. We've changed and expanded some of our principal investigators. In particular, we have added 2 more principal investigators here in Oregon. So Dr. Jay Scheidt, many of you might know, who is our extension plant pathologist, is now a principal investigator on this project, as well as Dr. Lloyd Napoli, who is our new nursery specialist based at the North Willamette, is also a PI on this project. So we've had an additional specialty crop grant, research initiative grant that we were awarded to expand this research. And so we started doing that. So it's about 18 different principal investigators in 6 different states now, and a multitude of crops working with this. The other thing that they asked us to do was look at retrofits of the technology. And I'm actually super excited about this aspect of it, because that other prototype, the hardware alone was only $22,000. Even if you add labor and margin to that, it still comes in pretty low, but it's pretty unique. When you think about all the ag equipment type, ag sprayer companies, they're probably going to want their own design sort of line. So retrofits really, I think, work into probably getting this out and commercialized, as well as if you've already got a sprayer that you like, why would you want to buy a new one? Let's see if we can just add this technology onto your existing sprayer. And mostly what it is an overlay of this technology. There's just a whole other multi-channel line that put on right where the other nozzles would be on an air blast sprayer. Right now we're working with air blast sprayers. I think that's going to change and evolve into looking at a more or a larger line of sprayers. Certainly the greenhouse aspects of this are being worked on as well in Ohio, and they're going to have one long boom with that type of thing. So I think that starts to broaden the type of crops we can look at. And I know everybody wants an over-the-tree row sprayer who's having to deal with the density of the canes or plant materials out there and all the sprays for spotted weed or softness. So hold on, I think down the road we'll start seeing some of that work. But you can see the variety of the types of sprayers that they've already modified. By the end of last summer, they had modified 7 of these things, and they're well into, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 that they're working on right now. We were lucky enough again to get one of the retrofits. This is at J. Frank Schmidt Sons Nursery down in Barlow or Canby area. And you can see this is a mini pack air blast sprayer. And basically right along here is where the nozzles and the hoses have come with the system. There's the computer in the cab, and right up behind or in front of that tank is where that laser is. So it came in August where it was a little too late for us to be able to do efficacy trials, which are really critical, but we did do a coverage and deposition trial. We wanted to see how this looked. Got it out in the field with Jay and Lloyd, one of our nursery interns out there. We used moisture-sensitive cards, which are incredibly useful tools for seeing how well your sprayer is working out there. These are the cards, if you're not familiar with them, when they get wet, they basically turn a different color, they turn blue, and they start off yellow. And this is the type of thing that we saw out there with our sprayers. So in front of the canopy, it's roughly equivalent. That's what the type of thing we're seeing behind. Not as much, but the real difference obviously is when you have those gaps, when you have those open spaces. We're not spraying, whereas a normal sprayer is putting out the same load out there. So we did this trial and it replicated randomized complete block design in crab apple trees out there. We put 8 different cards on each tree, and it's nice. Our PI actually designed software to allow us to scan the moisture-sensitive cards to see the droplet size and percentage coverage and deposition. And again, we saw no significant difference in the coverage. Same with deposition. I'm not going to show all the slides for that. But this retrofit looks to be doing what we want it to do. Is again not put anything out there in the empty spaces. So this is my last slide, and basically I'm excited because not only have we had incredible support from the Specialty Crop Research Initiative, in our cooperators, Hannah Nelson and J. Frank Schmidt's sons, will be working this year with line tenders and we think solar. But we've also had these folks go to bat for us in the Oregon Association of Nurseries and our congressional delegation. And they went, and it took a number of years, but they found additional funding because they think this is really important, particularly for Oregon. So now we